And g'day everyone, and welcome to the stream. I'm joined by Justin of, remind me of what TTOR stands for.
Truth, the objective reality.
Truth, the objective reality, who's been exposing evidence around Kent Hovind. And so I'm just here to investigate these claims. I'm not saying what I agree with. I don't know. I haven't investigated enough. So, Justin, if you can present the background, we are going to look at your second expose shortly, the second video of 25 minutes. But if you can give us the background leading up to that one.
Alrighty. Well, let me actually give a visual aid because in the description box of your stream, I believe you shared. Hold on, let me share this. Share screen. Application window. StreamYard Iridium. Boom. All right, then you just add me to the screen. I think you shared the link to this original documentary I did back in May called Kent Hovind
Yes.
Official is a pedo enabler covering for Chris Jones, who slept with a minor DAL. Basically, what was going on in this documentary was that I was asked a couple of months earlier by Brett Keane and Cindy Lincoln, one of Kent Hovind's ex-wives, to look into the whole Chris Jones situation as far as a visit to DAL that he made in November of 2019. It took me a little bit of time to get around to looking at the links that Cindy Lincoln had sent to me, as far as links to articles, links to videos, audio files, etc. But eventually I got around to checking out the audio recordings and the links that she gave me, and what I found is that Kent Hovind literally is a pedophile enabler who, more specifically, was trying to cover up the truth about Chris Jones and his 2019 visit to DAL with a boy named Zaire, who was 11 years old at the time, and I think he's 14 or 15 now. It's some pretty sick stuff. Basically, what happened is in November of 2019, Chris Jones brought Zaire to the DAL campus, and the staff at DAL, they were incredibly concerned about that because Chris Jones, back in the late 2000s, was convicted on multiple counts of committing lewd acts on minors under the age of 14. And he was registered as a sex offender in both South Carolina and I think California as well. And the laws are pretty clear that registered sex offenders, they're not supposed to be around children in any real capacity, especially not an overnight visit of any kind without supervision. So what happened is that for a couple of days, or at least for the first day of their visit, Chris Jones and this boy Zaire, they stayed together under the same roof in this house that was about quarter mile, half a mile off of the DAL property. And contrary to what Kent Hovind tells you, it was controlled by Kent Hovind's ministry because the person who owned the house at the time was controlled by Kent at that point. So what happened was Zaire, the boy, and Chris Jones are discovered by Paul Hansen the next morning wrestling in the same bed, although they tried to cover that up in their first explanations of the event. But anyway, Paul Hansen finds Chris Jones and this boy wrestling in the bed the next morning, and basically they have a meeting with Kent and they talk about how bad of a look this is for Chris Jones. And Paul Hansen, in the audio recording that was leaked, even told Chris Jones to his face that he was playing with fire by doing what he did. And then after people started talking about it, they kind of tried to play hush hush, and Kent Hovind for years would come on his channel every now and then and say Chris Jones has been his friend for 30 years, although it was actually like 20 years, and that, you know, Chris Jones didn't do anything wrong and that he's unjustly convicted of all this stuff and he shouldn't be on a sex offender registry list even though he is, and basically made every excuse in the book why Chris Jones was this good guy who didn't do anything wrong. But all the audio recordings and the stuff I looked at for my first expose showed that Kent Hovind was warned about allowing Chris Jones to come to DAL, and he should have been turned away at DAL when he brought the boy there. But instead, not only was he allowed to stay, but they allowed him to sleep in the house unsupervised with the boy, which, as you'll see in my second expose that we'll watch in a bit, is actually a violation of Alabama law. And so Kent Hovind has his whole big reaction to my expose, which showed that not only did he cover up the truth about Chris Jones, as well as what Chris Jones did when he visited DAL in 2019, but he also was trying to censor Cindy Lincoln off the internet simply because she wouldn't go along with the cover-up of Chris Jones and what he did there. Because in my original hour-long documentary, there's an audio recording where you hear Chris Jones and Kent Hovind talking over the phone, and Kent is trying to convince Chris Jones to create a sock account on YouTube and make a comment on Kent's videos saying that Cindy Lincoln should be kicked out of Kent Hovind's ministry because she is someone who is divorced from a previous husband. And fortunately, even Chris Jones wouldn't go along with that idea that Kent threw out there. But Kent was trying to get his wife censored and kicked out of the ministry because she wouldn't go along with covering up the whole Chris Jones thing, along with a number of other things going on between them that Cindy could tell you about if you ever want to talk to her on your channel or otherwise. And so then after this documentary dropped is when I went on multiple live streams with Brett Keane, and Kent Hovind basically was having a back and forth with us on his channel. But instead of actually coming into our stream directly when given the chance and displaying just a little bit of patience, he decided to chicken out and he decided to throw a bunch of mud at us.
Yep.
And I think before we talk about the third expose, is there any questions that you want to ask me before we watch the second one?
Yeah, sure. So you're not trying to attack, you've told me you're a young earth creationist. You're not trying to attack young earth creationism.
Oh.
You're not trying to attack the truths that that Kent Hovind presents. Your concern is that he's turned his ministry in, it seems like, into a bit of a cult in some ways. And that's what you're really focused on. So it's not an attack on Christianity or the truth at all.
Now, as far as the cult thing goes, if you know what cult of personality is, Kent Hovind and his followers fit the bill perfectly. And the fact that they have an actual compound that they call Dinosaur Adventureland, where they actually all live together like a commune, that kind of cements the whole idea of them being a cult. But that's just them and their group. There's a tendency on the part of atheists and other Christians to think that Kent Hovind and his ministry and his little cult represent the entire young earth creationism movement. The truth of the matter is that not all young earth creationists are like that. Our movement, unfortunately, is dominated by a couple of different cults of personality, but there are plenty of young earth creationists in the movement who are more individualistic and rugged as far as being a free thinker goes, and we don't exactly go along with groupthink. Like, for example, on my channel, I had a separate live stream with Sal, another young earth creationist, who exposed a lot of the bad arguments in favor of young earth creationism that Kent Hovind has made in his ministry. So while Kent Hovind and I have different arguments for young earth creationism, mine are the better arguments because they're not bad and they actually rely on what atheists and evolutionists actually say, what studies say, and what the Bible says. But as far as our core beliefs go regarding origins, Kent and I do share the young earth creationism worldview. So when I criticize Kent Hovind, I don't criticize him because I hate young earth creationists and I just want to make them all look bad. You know, this is a young earth creationist trying to do some in-house cleaning is what I'm doing.
And I think that's how I became first aware of these claims and of you is through Sal. You know, I became aware, hang on, these claims are being made against Kent Hovind. So I thought, well, I'll investigate. I'll see what's going on. So I reached out to you and you agreed to come on a stream. And that's where I am at the moment with this. And I did listen to a little bit of the claims that have been made. But yeah, I haven't done a lot of investigation myself at this stage. So I think that gives us enough for us to go into this second video, the second expose that you've done. So I'll put that up on the screen. And anytime you want to interrupt and make any other comments, no, this is the one we want to show.
And
so
same to you.
25 minutes. Yeah, I will pause it when I've got things that I want to say. Just to let the audience know as well, we're only going to go for an hour and a half with this stream. We've been going for 10 minutes at the moment. Justin has to go in less than 2 hours.
Yes, contrary to the Kent Hovind defenders, I do have a life outside of criticizing Kent Hovind.
Yes, we can't just be doing this all the time.
No, it's not good for the soul.
So I did have one person that wanted to ask about this Illuminati pyramid. I wouldn't call that an Illuminati pyramid. It is just a pyramid.
Yeah, I had that thrown at me too over on BitChute, and it's just so silly. It's literally just a triangle.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where the Illuminati part comes in. I guess where the welcome to TTOR thing is there, Illuminati symbol would have an eye, but that's a pretty big reach.
Yeah, if you're trying to put a line across here and chop off the top, but yeah, okay. So it's just a triangle. And I don't think that question was being asked as an accusation, by the way. I think it was just a question.
Right. Well, I had someone on BitChute actually throw it at me as an accusation.
Yeah.
So that's why I said that.
But if people do have, evidence of that, then, present your evidence.
I mean, if a triangle is an Illuminati hand symbol, then I guess Batman the Animated Series is full of those, because there's many scenes where Batman's eyes are literally triangles. Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. And yes, as you can see from the title and thumbnail of today's video, today I have a follow-up to my Kent Hovind expose regarding the Chris Jones situation that I did not too long ago. You see, in response to that expose, as well as in response to the 11-hour live stream that I was recently on Brett Keen's channel, Kent Hovind decided to come out on Brett Keen's channel and make a response to us. And unfortunately, Kent Hovind made two big mistakes here when he went onto Brett Keen's channel and attempted to respond to my expose and our 11-hour live stream. First mistake, he went onto Brett Keen's channel to attempt to defend himself. And the reason why that was a mistake is because mistake number two, Kent Hovind unintentionally admitted that Chris Jones committed a Class C felony when he visited DAL with Zaire a couple years ago. And no, that is not clickbait. That's not a sensational headline that I'm just making up. You're going to see later in this video that according to Alabama law, Chris Jones committed a Class C felony when he slept under the same roof as Zaire during an overnight visit to DAL. Now, I will start out by saying that this original interview that I'll be showing you clips of, it was up on Brett Keen's channel for about 6 days after it was done as a live stream. But then Brett Keen decided to put that video into private, as well as several other videos related to the topic. But after Brett watches this video, he may want to reconsider making that video public again, because that video could end up being used as evidence against not only Chris Jones, but also Kent Hovind. Now, in the first 6 minutes of this interview that Kent did on Brett's channel recently, attempting to defend himself, Kent was given a chance basically to do a Kent Hovind Dinosaur Adventureland infomercial for his ministry. And so I decided not to address any of that stuff because it's an infomercial and, there's no point in responding to that. So it is at the 6 minute and 32-second mark of this interview on Brett Keen's channel where Kent Hovind attempts to defend himself regarding the Chris Jones situation and my expose, and accidentally ends up incriminating Chris Jones. And without any further ado, let's get into that clip of the interview.
All right. So there was a young boy who ended up, I believe his name is Sear, who came on the property with Chris Jones. And Chris Jones, according to a lot of these different websites, I don't know Chris Jones personally myself, but according to TTOR, Truth, the Objective Reality, who was a Christian who made a video, he's also a young earth creationist. He stated that Chris Jones has several counts against him for lewd behavior and sexual acts with children, or whatever the case might be. You can talk about that if you want to. But the issue is that everybody's getting wild and excited about is that the child apparently was brought there. You had a guy, I believe, Mr. Hansen or something like that. I don't know his name. I'm sure you'll know who I'm talking about, who says they found him in a bed with the child. And then since then, Mark Stoney claims, as well as others, that the child hasn't been seen since. The indication is either something went wrong with the kid, or he's dead, or he's in a ditch somewhere. And this is scaring the hell out of Christians, as well as some atheists who either are concerned, and some of them obviously may have their other reasons for why they're saying it. But what is your...
I've got to say that it's bizarre for a Christian or a claimed Christian to say, because I don't know Brett Keen. So I just suddenly realized Brett Keen has invited me on his show. I looked up his channel and decided, nah.
Wait, when did he do that? Was that a while ago?
Yeah, a while ago.
Yeah, because I think he, as far as I know, he left YouTube like a week or two ago.
Right. Yeah, no, it was, I don't know, months ago. Because I was thinking that name Brett Keen sounds familiar, and I was trying to figure out why, but he does float around these, or used to float around these communities. But getting back to why I interrupted, it is bizarre to me that someone would say scares the hell out of Christians. There is no hell in Christians. There's no hell to be scared out of Christians. That's a bizarre. I mean, I know what people mean by it, but say it in another way.
I think it's just a common expression.
It is a common expression, but I just find it bizarre. And I think we should stop saying it. But anyway, let's keep going.
Your point, I am going to unmute you right now.
Well, thank you, sir. This is so crazy that they would do such a thing. Paul Hansen and I talked yesterday. I've texted him 4 times this morning, said, can you please call in? He wants to call in and explain what happened. My ex-wife, Cindy, right here, was on your program the other night. She bought 3 houses in the neighborhood with the money that from the house her dad gave her in California. One of the houses is about maybe a half mile away, around the corner up here. And she had just bought it. It had nothing in it whatsoever except a mattress on the floor, and basically that's about it. I forget what else. Anyway, Paul Hansen had a little camper, and he was staying plugged in out in front of that house that she owns around the corner. And when Chris Jones, my longtime friend, came, who had been convicted, and no, that's not the right call here. Let me reject that one. So Chris has never stayed on the property here, ever. He's been here to visit a couple times. I'm sure a lot of people's pedophile records go to Disneyland and to McDonald's, too, without a background check. If somebody's going to stay here, we check them out. But they just come to visit. People come all the time here. We've had visitors from 70 countries. Anyway, so he did nothing wrong. He's off probation.
Hang on. Longtime friend. He was just visiting. So no background check was needed. So if he's a longtime friend, you weren't aware he's a pedophile?
But as you heard him acknowledge, Chris Jones is a registered sex offender.
That's right. Or you don't care. Kent.
Which would beg another question. Hey, Kent, how did he get on that list? And did you know about these things?
Did he only become aware of this, his longtime friend? Did he only become aware later that his longtime friend was a convicted? Anyway.
Yeah.
Questions that need to be answered.
And if he didn't do anything wrong to begin with, his case was bogus from the start.
Oh, okay.
Chris is going to come on the program in about 1 month. I think after our boot camp, June 5th or 6th, we're scheduled for us to do a program with Chris and a couple lawyers who are in on this, who know everything about it, and will be glad to defend Chris in what they did. Paul is quite...
And those lawyers never came on to your show yet, as far as I'm aware. Can't.
Did you notice that he said who are in on this?
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting expression.
Are you sure that's really what you mean, Kent? In on this means they're part of the conspiracy.
Part of the cover-up, yeah.
I don't think that's what you intended to mean, but are you admitting something by saying it that way?
In the words of Heath Ledger's Joker, poor choice of words.
Oh, dear.
Quite the legal genius. Paul's been a longtime friend of Chris, and we'll be glad to defend him in all of this. Okay, let's see. And Mark's trying to call me now. No, Mark, I don't want to talk to you right now. I'm doing a program, okay? So let's see. So Chris, and he brought a young boy, a 13-year-old young black boy from his area up there where he's from, who is being raised without a father. And Chris...
Wow. Okay, so Chris is the convicted pedophile.
Mm-hmm. Registered sex offender.
Specifically
for doing things to kids under the age of 14 who are boys. And he shows up with a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah, Kent is claiming all of that's bogus, but, you know, the wise thing, even if it was all bogus, which, even if it was all bogus, the wise thing to do would be, okay, that's going to create problems. Anyway, wow.
Yeah. Because even if he was right and Chris was innocent of all these things and he was unjustly convicted of these things and unjustly put on this registry, even if that was all true, the Bible that claims to believe in says that we are to avoid the appearance of evil. So he shouldn't have Chris Jones coming there where kids are present, and he definitely shouldn't be letting him come there with a kid in tow. I mean, that's giving off the appearance of evil, even if Kent's story about Chris being innocent was true.
By the way, do you know why Brett's left YouTube?
No, I haven't talked to him in a while.
Okay.
So
it
it probably doesn't have anything to do with this, is my guess.
Right. Yeah. And you and him are friends, or like you know each other to some
like
degree?
content creator friends. We've emailed back and forth, been on several live streams together, video responses. I think he's got a good heart, even if he makes mistakes at times. But he did a good job in helping expose Kent, even though he looks up to Kent. So I don't really have anything bad to say about Brett in this regard, even though there are other people who would tell you differently.
Yeah. Yep.
Took him in under his wing to kind of be dad to him. Chris is not a pedophile. He's on a registry, but he shouldn't be, okay? But he's not a pedophile. There's nothing dangerous about Chris Jones, okay?
Well, you keep asserting that, but,
he's a registered sex offender, but he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. And I don't like it when people just assert things and then they assert it again and then they assert it again. And it's like, well, hang on. Before you continue to assert it, why don't you dig into this? Why don't you say, well, this is what happened and this is why it's bogus and this is... No, I don't trust people who just assert and then assert and then assert again with zero evidence.
Mm-hmm. Law, I've known him for 30 years. Anyway, he brought that boy with his mother's permission down here to visit DAL. They had a wonderful time. Then he wanted to stay the night at the house that Cindy owns. When she gave the program the other night, she was real deceitful about that. She said, yeah, it's a house near there that DAL controls. Cindy, you're lying through your teeth. That's a house that you own that was just bought. It was empty. So Paul Hansen and Chris and this boy Zaire.
And then he stops.
Mhm.
So why was Chris in the house, Kent? Keep going with the story about the house.
Went over to stay over there. Well, there's only one mattress on the floor. The boy was sleeping on a couch, but he got scared. He came in and said, Chris, can I stay with you? And Chris said, let's call your mother. So he called the mother right away and said, look.
Yeah, no, that's not good enough.
And in my third expose, I proved by showing the testimony of Zaire and his mother that Kent's story about them Chris Jones calling her up to get permission to let the boy sleep with him, all fabrication, all lies. Never happened.
Far out.
Look, Zaire's scared. What should I do? She said, well, that's fine. He can stay in the same. It's a queen-size bed on the floor, both fully dressed, stayed on the bed. Paul came in the next morning and said, Chris.
I don't care, Kent. Even if all that's true, this is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. Just letting him come there in the first place, especially if a kid in tow, gives off the appearance of evil. It's a violation of the biblical command, Kent.
An adult male alone with a minor. At best, this is unwise.
Well, I don't think I should clarify. If Chris Jones wasn't a registered sex offender specifically for doing things to boys Zaire's age, we probably wouldn't have been as concerned about him going there with the boy and being the father figure to him and then staying overnight. But the fact
if he's on his own, I would be concerned. An adult male with a minor that is not his child should always have another party present.
That is a good practice. You are right.
I
can see where that wouldn't necessarily be necessary if Chris Jones is actually a decent, upstanding guy and had a good relationship with the mother and had established a high level of trust with her. I could see where that would be a thing, but no, it's the things about Chris Jones before that. I mean, we knew he's a registered sex offender and that he had done things.
Yeah, that only adds.
That's what makes everything about this bad.
That adds to the problem, but in my opinion, it is wise, and you are being unwise. And I'm saying this for everyone's benefit because you may have never thought about this before. You may, I'd never do anything, and maybe you wouldn't, but you could get accused, and you have no defense against the accusation because it's just your word against the other person's word.
One thing
I saw them go alone into a house, and then people can make up whatever accusations they like, and you have no defense against that. It is not wise.
I can see your point in that, and I will say that in one of the live streams I participated in, one of the people who spoke, who was a former staffer at DAL when that whole thing went down, she said that the DAL staff actually offered to have Chris Jones and the boy stay in basically like one of these male cabins where there'd be all these adults around to make sure nothing shady happened. But instead, Kent decided to throw them both by themselves into that house just off of the property. Kent made that
doesn't really look.
So why was he in that house if it's Cindy's house? See, this is the thing that Kent isn't dealing with. This was Kent's decision. Oh, it was an empty house. Right, so why is this registered sex offender being allowed into that house? Was that your decision, Kent?
Well, it was. I mean, like the lady said in the other stream, they offered.
I'm asking him.
Yeah,
I'm asking him to deal with that. He needs to answer that question. He won't, by the sound of it. But anyway, this is all very fascinating.
But he said, look. What do I do? The kid asked if he could stay with me. He was scared. I didn't do anything.
So, as we could see in that clip of the interview, Kent Hovind admits that Chris Jones is a registered sex offender who brought a 13-year-old boy to DAL on one of his visits, a boy who Kent admits is not a blood relative of Chris Jones's. He's some kid that Chris Jones lives near, and he decided to take him under his wing and be a father figure to him. Kent then admits that not only did Chris Jones and Zaire...
And that's ridiculous. That's not how that works.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll be a father figure to you, and I'll take you off your family, and you'll be alone with me. No.
One of the things that Zaire's mother also talked about on Mark Stoney's channel was that she actually had no idea that Chris Jones had taken Zaire off on this trip until after they got back. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Sleep under the same roof for a night, but they actually slept on the same mattress and were found that way in the morning by Paul Hansen. Now, there are several things we need to point out about everything that Kent Hovind has admitted in this clip. The first thing I'd like to point out to you, Kent, is that the only way a person can get put on a sex offender registry list is that they have to be convicted of committing sex crimes. The reason why Chris Jones is on the South Carolina sex offender registry is because he was convicted on multiple charges of committing lewd acts on minors under the age of 14. And just to make the point clear, according to People versus Jones, which I'm not going to read in here in this video, but I did in my original expose, here are the things that Chris Jones did in order to get convicted as a pedophile and get put on the sex offender registry list. Chris Jones, according to People versus Jones, put a naked boy over his lap and smacked his butt. He forced two boys to strip down to their underwear while watching a boxing match. He sexually groped a boy in his limousine after getting the boy to take off his pants and underwear. He dared a boy to strip down to his underwear in a game of Truth or Dare. He showed small children porn videos and porn pics. He took pics of kids when they were naked. He got a boy under the age of 14 to sleep in a bed with him in exchange for video game time on the computer. And he got a hard-on while watching the boys play strip naked during a game of strip poker, a game which Chris himself initiated, according to People versus Jones. So those are the reasons why Chris Jones was convicted of being a pedophile and put on the South Carolina sex offender registry list. But according to Kent Hovind, even though Chris Jones did all those things, Chris Jones didn't do anything wrong, and he didn't deserve to be convicted of being a pedophile, and he didn't deserve to get put on the sex offender registry list. Furthermore, by Kent Hovind's own admission...
And it is possible, in theory, it has happened. People have been falsely convicted, but that does seem to be quite compelling evidence, and there would have to be compelling evidence to the contrary that this is all bogus.
Yeah, and the thing that you don't see in this expose, because in the first one I did, it's an hour long, I actually read through the entire factual allegations against him, and what you realize is that it was multiple boys over multiple years. Like, this wasn't like a one-off thing. It was a regular pattern, a regular habit of Chris Jones's. There were many, many boys who he victimized that spoke out against him in this trial.
So, Kent, why is it all bogus? Because he's your friend? Is that why it's bogus, Kent?
Chris Jones committed a Class C felony according to Alabama law when he slept overnight in the same house as Zaire when they visited DAL together. How do I know this? Well, let's go ahead and turn to Alabama law, which you can see right here on the screen. It is Alabama Code 15-28-11. And this is regarding adult sex offenders and prohibited residence locations, etc. When you skip down to Section D of this law, it says, no adult sex offender shall reside or conduct an overnight visit with a minor. Notwithstanding the foregoing, an adult sex offender may reside with a minor if the adult sex offender is the parent, grandparent, step-parent, sibling, or step-sibling of the minor, unless one of the following conditions applies. And then you see all the following conditions. So according to Alabama law, an adult sex offender is not allowed to have an overnight visit with a minor in any capacity unless they are a parent, grandparent, step-parent, sibling, or step-sibling of the minor. But Kent Hovind already admitted that Zaire is not a blood relative to Chris Jones in any way, so this exception doesn't apply. Furthermore, when you go down to Section I, it says, any person who knowingly violates this section shall be guilty of a Class C felony. So Chris Jones, when he came to DAL with Zaire in tow, and when they stayed the night together under the same roof, in the same unfurnished house, in the same mattress in this unfurnished house, just off the property of DAL, Chris Jones actually committed a Class C felony according to Alabama law.
Just off the property.
Yeah, just off the property, but it's still a felony for a...
No, my point is that Kent, nothing to
that'll
do with
be
me.
That would be Kent's defense, you said?
That's Cindy's house. Nothing to do with me. It's your friend, Kent. You knew all about this. You knew about him going in their house. You knew. So what's your defense for that, Kent?
Plus, in the third expose, I actually addressed the whole Cindy Lincoln owned the house issue by actually showing on screen the deed to the house, and it shows that Cindy Lincoln bought the house, I think, on December 17th, 2019, which was about 3 weeks after the visit by Chris Jones and Zaire. She bought the house 3 weeks after all this went down.
So whose house was it before that?
I forget the name of the person who owned it, but it was somebody that Kent controlled.
Oh, okay.
Basically, whatever Kent says, they do it. That's who owned the house.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Ouch.
Now, what makes this situation potentially a whole lot worse for Kent Hovind is that he actually could be charged with criminal conspiracy in regards to Chris Jones committing this Class C felony. When you go to Alabama Code 13A-4-3, you find yourself in the criminal conspiracy generally section of the Alabama law. It says, a person is guilty of criminal conspiracy if, with the intent that conduct constituting an offense be performed, he agrees with one or more persons to engage in or cause the performance of such conduct, and any one or more of such persons does an overt act to effect any objective of the agreement. If a person knows or should know that one with whom he agrees has in turn agreed or will agree with another to effect the same criminal objective, he shall be deemed to have agreed with such other person, whether or not he knows the other's identity. A person is not liable under this section if, under circumstances manifesting a voluntary, complete renunciation of his criminal purpose, he gave a timely and adequate warning to law enforcement authorities or made a substantial effort to prevent the enforcement of the criminal conduct contemplated by the conspiracy. Renunciation by one conspirator, however, does not affect the liability of another conspirator who does not join in the abandonment of the conspiratorial objective. The burden of injecting the issue of renunciation is on the defendant, but this does not shift the burden of proof. And then we will skip down to Section G and number 4 in Section G, which says criminal conspiracy is a Class A misdemeanor if an object of the conspiracy is a Class C felony. So in relations to the Chris Jones committing a Class C felony when he was at DAL Zaire, how does this apply to Kent Hovind? Well, Kent Hovind could have stopped that entire Class C felony from happening. He knows that Chris Jones is a registered sex offender. He admitted so already. And he didn't have to allow Chris Jones to come to the DAL campus in the first place. And when Chris Jones showed up with Zaire in tow, Kent Hovind could have cast Chris Jones off and said, don't come back until Zaire's gone. He also could have had Chris Jones stay in the unfurnished house off of DAL campus and then have Zaire stay with a trusted family in a cabin on the other side of DAL as far away from Chris Jones as possible during the night. Kent Hovind could have done all of those things,
That's
which
right.
would have prevented this Class C felony from happening. But not only did Kent Hovind not...
And my deeper concern than the illegality, as bad as the illegality, there's a moral issue going on here that needs to be dealt with. And Kent is completely ignoring it. There's all of this, oh, well, let's just ignore that and no answers to these questions and those questions. And this is just utter stupidity. This is a moral evil.
Yep. Deliberately allowing something like that to happen when you could have stopped it, that's as evil as it gets as far as being an accomplice goes. Not do these things, he turned right around and for the last couple of years has been saying that Chris Jones did absolutely nothing wrong.
At best, this was unwise. You cannot say he did absolutely nothing wrong. That is an utter lie, or it's the sign of someone who completely lacks any moral compass here. No moral compass at all, no moral standing except what they determine is right and wrong. And this is, my friend, they can't do anything wrong. And I will defend them no matter what. That's what this looks like to me.
Yeah. I have heard that is how Kent is with his friends. He's like one of those people where if he deems you to be his friend, then basically he'll defend you to the bitter end, no matter how in the wrong you are, to say the least. But then as soon as you become inconvenient to him and his agenda, he will drop you like a bad habit, no matter how good of friends you think you are.
And it'll be funny if that happens to Chris. Well, it won't be funny, but yeah.
Well, I if it hasn't happened already, I think it will happen. I think Kent's going to completely dump him in order to try and protect his brand.
And then try and cover all of this up that he tried to protect Chris.
Even though, according to Kent Hovind's own admission, Chris Jones committed a Class C felony by sleeping in the same house as Zaire for an overnight visit to DAL. So technically, Chris Jones is guilty of committing a Class C felony, and Kent Hovind, since he not only did nothing about it, but attempted to claim that Chris Jones didn't commit a Class C felony ever since, Kent Hovind could be charged as a criminal conspirator of Chris Jones. He could literally be charged with a Class A misdemeanor because he not only did nothing to stop Chris Jones from committing the felony when he...
And I seriously hope the authorities are investigating this. In fact, I'd be surprised if they aren't. They went after Kent for something far less than this. To protect their Illuminati tax agenda and the power of an overreaching federal government. I was actually on Kent's side in that one, although it may have been unwise the way he did it. But in theory, Kent was right about the principle behind the federal government's overreach in terms of taxing citizens. Dearie me.
He could have stopped Chris Jones from doing it, but he's attempting to claim that Chris Jones did nothing wrong when he committed this Class C felony. Now, we are going to return back to where we left off in the Kent Hovind interview, and we see something very interesting in the next clip.
See, some of those who have pedophilia on their brain think, oh, man, if a boy lays down with a man, it's got to be sex. No, it doesn't. Maybe the boy needs comforted. There's a lot of pride.
Oh, you're an idiot. Oh, you don't have to have pedophilia on the brain to realize that pedophilia exists, and this is extremely unwise.
Yeah.
Oh, you're either an idiot that has your head so far in the sand that you're not aware of how this looks. Like just, or you're complicit in this, so you're trying to cover up. That's the only two options here.
Well, there is a theory that Chris Jones may have some kind of dirt on Kent Hovind that Kent wouldn't want shared with the world. So they basically Kent has an interest in protecting him, even if he's not a part of it. So yeah, that's a third possibility.
Privates in this foxhole that go hug their sergeant. Please protect me when the bombs are flying.
Yeah, so I would include that in the complicity. That's a different type of complicity than complicit with the pedophilia, but it's still complicity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Morons that are perverts. All you can think of is pedophilia.
No, it's not all we can think of. All we can think of is holiness, Kent, and this is unholy. Even if nothing happened, even if there's not pedophilia going on, it's unholy on the surface of it, and wisdom compels you to want to make sure that false accusations can't be made. Mm-hmm. Your lack of just on the absolute base level, just treating you with the utmost of, the best will that I can possibly have for you. You have no discernment.
Yeah,
that's the best I can say about this.
And it's weird because Kent Hovind is someone who's concerned about his brand and image. So it kind of baffles the mind that he could allow his brand and image to be forever destroyed from the optics of allowing a registered sex offender to sleep with a minor unsupervised in a house that he controls just off of his compound. The optics of that alone are so bad that it's amazing Kent Hovind even allowed it to happen.
And Kent, if you want to come on my channel and defend the foolishness that you're displaying here, but yeah, I can imagine the dumpster fire that would turn into, because you're not going to admit, you're just going to keep asserting, no, he's done nothing wrong, he's done nothing wrong, he's done nothing wrong, he's done nothing wrong. This is utter stupidity. At the very least, this is moronic. It's at least that level of wrong. At least.
Yeah, that's the best case scenario, as you say.
And this is Kent's own words. I'm not even relying on anything. This is Kent on screen. I'm not even relying on what Justin's claiming at all. This is just what Kent's saying here. This is all resolved. Yeah, by sweeping it under the carpet, Donnie. No, this is not resolved at all. Wow. No, don't look over there. No.
The problem's in your brain. There was no problem with Chris or Paul or the boys.
No. No. There's no problem in my brain. Pedophilia exists, and this is stupidity. Human beings are sinners, Kent. And for you keep defending this guy as though he's perfect, when he's a convicted pedophile. He's a registered sex offender. At least on that level, this is stupidity.
Well, not just a registered sex offender, but from what I understand, I think he's designated on the registry as like I think it's called a tier 3, which is like the highest designation you can have. Basically, that's really bad. Yeah.
But he did nothing wrong. Really? Nothing, Kent? Yep. Nothing. And then you want to blame the people who go, hang on, this looks bad. That's because all you can think about is pedophilia. Okay.
Right.
Wow. But I suppose the best defense is an offense. Yep. Go on the attack.
Yeah.
Come out all guns blazing. Go down OK Corral. Go down Ned Kelly.
Yep. This is the hill to die on, apparently.
Apparently. This is the most important thing. Wow, Kent, this is utter stupidity.
Zaire. The next day, Chris took the boy home.
So, as
Oh, yeah. Well, that solves everything.
As we could see in that clip, Kent Hovind accuses me and everyone who was in that 11-hour live stream of having
anyone who even dares ask a question here.
Mm-hmm.
All they've got's pedophilia on their brain all the time.
Well, he was specifically
Okay.
making that video in response to the 11-hour live stream that I was part of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it
but
just be
by
the people in there.
implication, he's condemning everybody who even wants to ask a question. Okay.
That's how cults work. Pedophilia on the brain.
Yeah, that's how cults work. Exactly.
And then he called all of us perverts. The very strong implication that Kent Hovind is making here is that either me and everyone in
I'm sorry, this is not funny, but
it's unintentionally hilarious. Yes,
it is. This is just so ridiculous. Oh, wow, this is pathetic. Absolutely pathetic.
In that live stream, who exposed him is either struggling with pedophilia urges or
no, I can assure you I'm not. Absolutely.
Ditto.
Yuck. No, Kent, it's obviously you defending your convicted registered sex offender friend.
Or we are pedophiles ourselves. And in response to Kent, I have several things to point out. One, nobody in that 11-hour live stream that Kent is responding to, which includes me, no one believes for even a second that the mere act of a boy sleeping in a bed with an adult man is proof of pedophilia. If Chris Jones was not a convicted pedophile and a registered sex offender, none of us would have thought anything of Zaire being found sleeping in the same bed as Chris, and we would have agreed with Kent that Chris didn't do anything wrong. However, because Chris Jones is a convicted pedophile and because Chris Jones is a registered sex offender, we have every reason to be concerned that Zaire was found sleeping in the same bed in the same house as Chris Jones when they visited DAL a couple years ago. Our concern is further validated because it turns out that Chris Jones, by Kent Hovind's own admission, committed a Class C felony when he slept overnight in the same house as Zaire. And the reason why it's a felony is because Chris Jones is a registered sex offender. And according to Alabama law, registered sex offenders who are adults are not allowed to sleep in the same house under the same roof.
He did nothing wrong. Well, legally, he definitely did, and you've admitted it. Well done, Kent.
Exactly. That's the part that's hilarious about this expose. Even when Kent Hovind is doing his best to defend and exonerate Chris Jones, he implicates him in committing a felony anyway.
And he implicates himself as an accomplice.
Yes.
Kent, you're a Class A moron.
Yep.
At best. Oh, boy.
Well, it's like I explained in the beginning of the video. Kent's biggest mistake was attempting to defend himself and Chris Jones publicly. That was his biggest mistake. For an overnight visit with a minor. The next thing I would like to point out is that Kent accusing all of us of being pedophiles for pointing out that a convicted pedophile and registered sex offender was found sleeping in the same bed as a minor.
See, this now helps resolve my confusion for many years. Whose side should I be on in Kent versus Cindy and Eric? Well, I think it's obvious now. I mean, it was probably obvious to other people, but I didn't have. Now I know he's a narcissistic.
Spiritual narcissist is the exact term. That's
he's a
what
spiritual narcissist.
Because it's spiritual narcissists who use religion to do their thing. That's exactly what he is.
Yeah. And he's trying to defend his fame and reputation and ministry and his ministry, by the way. I was warned against Kent Hovind years ago by Creation Ministries who, were concerned that he was operating like a lone wolf. And he could not be corrected, even
Yep.
when he was wrong. He will never, ever accept that he does anything wrong.
And that's a classic symptom of spiritual narcissism.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was aware of Kent Hovind being a wolf long before any of this stuff even went down. Because back in 2015, before he got out of prison, he went on to Lone Star 1776's YouTube channel, and he specifically taught that repentance is not a salvation issue.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
despite
Yeah.
the fact that there are multiple passages in the New Testament that point
Yeah.
blank say that repentance leads to salvation. Yeah, just ignore those, Kent. And his excuse for that teaching was, well, if repentance was part of salvation, why isn't it in every single verse dealing with salvation?
Well, faith isn't in every verse dealing with salvation. Sometimes it only says to repent, and it doesn't say to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Or it uses other words. So that's ridiculous. But yeah, that was a concern to me about Kent Hovind.
Yeah, and then
but
then,
I sort
then
of shrugged it off and go, okay, well, he's mistaken. He's confused.
Well, and he's also technically disqualified from his ministry because right after he got out of prison, he proceeded to be married to 4 different women over the next few years.
Wow.
2 of which who he's still legally married to, technically. So he's also technically a polygamist.
Wow. Wow.
Which makes me laugh so hard. But yeah, this is what he had going on before this whole Zaire Chris Jones thing went down.
Yeah, see, I didn't even know all of those things.
Yeah.
I knew that he'd remarried, but I didn't realize it was 4.
He's technically married to wife number 4, sort of, but he never divorced his second wife, and he never officially broke things off with his third wife, Cindy. So technically, he's married to 3 women right now, even though he scorned and got rid of the previous 2. Because if Mary Toko wants to get married again before she dies, she's going to have to officially divorce Kent in order to make it happen.
Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy!
But she said she doesn't want to do it until she actually, has a husband to marry first, if that ever happens again.
Lord, what is the sin unto death? How on earth has Kent not crossed that boundary already?
I think he's done a good job at showing us what a wolf Kent is. To anyone who's discerning. A classic case of projection. Kent not only is trying to project Chris Jones onto all of us, me included, but Kent is also committing defamation when he does so. He's literally defaming us all by accusing us all of being pedophiles. And if Kent Hovind doesn't want to get hit with a defamation suit, he may want to put out a public apology video soon and apologize for accusing all of us of being pedophiles. The last thing I want to point out about this clip is this incredible double standard that Kent Hovind has. When Chris Jones does the sex crimes against kids that he did, which includes, touching children on their thighs after they're naked and making kids strip naked and showing them porn images either on the internet or on videos or in pictures and getting a hard-on while he watches kids strip naked and among other things. When Chris Jones does all those things, he is a righteous man of God who did nothing wrong, according to Kent Hovind. But when people like me point out that Chris Jones is a convicted pedophile who committed sex crimes against kids, Kent accuses me of being a pedophile and a pervert. He accuses all of us of being pedophiles and perverts when we point out that Chris Jones is a convicted pedophile who committed sex crimes against kids. This is total hypocrisy, total slander, and total defamation all rolled into one big ball. Now, in the next and last clip of the video, we see Kent say the following.
This came up that where is Mark Stoney keeps bringing this up. Where is this boy? I called the mother probably a week after this event. She said, what do you mean? He's right here. The mother and the boy are sick and tired of Mark Stoney making these lies about them. He's never been missing. He was never molested. He had a wonderful time at DAL. And they are sick and tired of all the folks claiming there's pedophilia. He's not missing. He was taken home the next day. There was no immoral acts there. But some of you can't think outside that box. So I'm sorry. but they're lying. Okay, there was nothing wrong, and it was happened in Cindy's house.
So, as we can see in that clip, Kent claims that Zaire is not missing, that Zaire is fine, and that he was not molested, and that nothing wrong happened while Chris and Zaire were at DAL together a couple of years ago. First and foremost, Kent Hovind's word is not good enough at this point, especially since he's trying to cover up Chris Jones's past sex crimes. So, yeah, Kent Hovind's say-so definitely is not an authoritative source of information on this matter. Secondly, even if Kent is right and that Chris Jones didn't commit any acts of pedophilia on Zaire while they were at DAL together, Chris, according to Kent Hovind's own admission, is still guilty of committing a Class C felony while he was at DAL simply because he, as a registered adult sex offender, slept in the same unfurnished house as Zaire during an overnight visit to DAL. So even if we believe Kent Hovind's story is 100% true regarding what happened with Chris Jones and Zaire at DAL, Chris Jones still committed a Class C felony according to Kent Hovind's own admission. And because Kent Hovind not only did nothing to stop it from happening, but also tried to claim that Chris Jones did nothing wrong, Kent Hovind could potentially be charged with a Class A misdemeanor of criminal conspiracy over this whole thing. He could be. He also could not be for reasons that I'm not aware of or sure about, but Kent could be charged with a Class A misdemeanor for doing nothing to stop Chris Jones from committing a Class C felony when Kent had every opportunity in the world to prevent that felony from happening.
Yep.
In conclusion, the last thing I would like to point out about this whole scenario is that Kent Hovind claims that Paul Hansen's this great lawyer and attorney and that he has all these other great attorney friends who are basically going to clear up this whole Chris Jones thing and prove his innocence. Well, Kent, if your attorney friends were even halfway competent at all, they would have told you never to go on Brett Keene's show to defend yourself and never to speak about this whole situation on Brett Keene's show because you could accidentally incriminate yourself and Chris Jones. But what do you know? Kent Hovind made the mistake of going on Brett Keene's show to defend himself regarding the whole Chris Jones situation. And in the process, Kent Hovind not only admitted that Chris Jones committed a Class C felony while he was at DAL by sleeping under the
Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. The fall's coming, Kent. You've destroyed yourself by your arrogance and hubris. Astounding. But okay.
The same roof as Zaire during an overnight visit to DAL, but Kent may have also brought on potential Class A misdemeanor charges against himself regarding criminal conspiracy because he admitted pretty strongly that he could have stopped this Class C felony from happening, and yet he not only chose not to, he's claiming that Chris Jones did nothing wrong when he committed a Class C felony. Yep. I think Kent Hovind is going to rue the day that he ever went onto Brett Keene's channel and attempted to defend himself and his cover-up of Chris Jones.
No matter what any other truth of this may be, that absolutely 100%. Wow.
That was his big mistake, in my opinion. I mean, that's the bigger mistake than all the things he said on Brett's shows. The fact that he was stupid enough to go on there in the first place.
So the channel is TTOR. I've given you the first video in the description. So yeah, like, subscribe, and let's hope that the truth is revealed. So it's been an hour, so we've still got 25 minutes if we wanted to continue going. There is a third video, but how long does it go for? 45 minutes?
41 minutes and 30 seconds.
But based on it'd take twice as long with the interruptions and comments.
We
But we
could
don't have
actually
time.
do a separate stream where we do that,
Yes, yeah.
We could do a separate
that'd
stream
be
where we
good.
just watch and react to the part 3.
Yeah, we can do a part 3 at a later time. So did you want to do anything else to fill the next 20 minutes, or this is, I feel like we've done enough.
Is anyone watching this live have any questions that they'd like to ask
Yeah,
me?
anyone
or
got
ask,
any questions?
Ask our host here.
Yeah. Anyone got any questions? Anyone want to jump on, throw any questions in the chat? I don't know if you've been watching the chat as we've been going, Justin, but
I saw a little bit, but I haven't been looking at it for the last several minutes.
there weren't really any questions. People are shocked and appalled. I think people. Oh, Richard does ask, why isn't that Chris in prison for life? If those things were true of him, if he was convicted of those, yeah, he should be, because the jails are full.
I don't know what kind of shenanigans happened with his sentencing, but he definitely did not get the sentence he deserved. I think he did just a couple of years in prison, and then he got put on the registry when he got out.
And Richard had said earlier he never got a divorce, but I think you answered that after that question.
Are we talking about, Kent Hovind officially divorced Joe Hovind, his first wife.
Joe, that's the first one. Yep.
Yes. So that's what made his, like when he, on my first documentary, when he was having the phone call of Chris Jones and telling Chris Jones to basically create a sock account and tell people that Cindy Lincoln should be kicked out of Kent's ministry because she's a divorced woman who divorced her previous husband. I point out in that documentary, that first expose, that, if Kent were consistent, he'd step down from his own ministry because he's divorced too.
Yeah. the hilarious hypocrisy that isn't hilarious at all. But yeah, we've got to laugh occasionally. Otherwise,
Kent has shown in this whole ordeal that there is no level he's not willing to stoop to, no matter as far as intelligence goes or stupidity goes. There's nothing he won't do in order to protect his brand and image, and for a while protect Chris Jones. But I think Chris Jones' protection has come to an end thanks to my exposés and the other people who've been talking about this in recent months.
So here's a question from Paul. What evidence does Kent have that he believes Chris is innocent? Is it only his say-so, or has he provided any evidence at all?
From what I've seen, it's purely Chris's say-so. Because I don't believe for even a second that if Kent actually looked at the People versus Jones case and the actual registries and all that, I don't think he'd believe even for a second that Chris Jones is innocent. Because one of the things that Kent has said in his defense of Chris Jones is that if these boys that he victimized could speak today, they would tell you that Chris Jones did nothing wrong, and they would want him to be exonerated of his charges and have his taken off the registry and all this stuff. Of course, the problem with that is that in the People versus Jones trial, it was the boys themselves that got him convicted. According to the case itself, it says that the convictions were based on the witness of the boys. So why would the same boys who put him there by testifying about what he did suddenly want him back out and about in the world again?
Yeah.
Why would they want him to not be branded as a sex offender because of what he did to them?
It's a massive conspiracy, and that's some pretty good conspiracy.
That's one of the other things, too, that Kent has said in defense of Chris Jones is that, Chris Jones did these expose books on the New World Order, and so as a way of getting back at him, the globalists decided to frame him as a pedophile. Yeah. And that they basically manipulated the courts and all of this. Of course, the problem with this argument is that Chris Jones wrote his exposés on the New World Order after he had committed all these sex crimes. Because these sex crimes, if you look at the case, they all occurred in the early 2000s. Whereas the trial itself took place it started in 2008. He got convicted. He tried to appeal, and it was the appeal rejection that I was referring to in the People versus Jones case, which ended in 2009. So his exposés on the New World Order came years after he did all the sex crimes. So that whole defense just doesn't fly.
Well, thanks for joining us, Justin. Doesn't look like people have any other questions. Oh yeah, people defended Ravi Zacharias with the same sort of defenses, that they were just false accusations and people were trying to bring him down.
And people defended Mario the Vigilant Christian the same way too, until he left the internet. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Are you?
No.
He was I guess he was one of the originators of the Christian Truther movement. And basically there's a guy named Gary828 on YouTube who's been exposing Mario for a couple of years now, at least until he left the internet. And basically what he exposed Mario for, and Mario eventually admitted to it on his channel, is that he took the $500,000 worth of donations he was getting for his ministry from the span of like 2014 through 2018, and he spent that money on drugs and alcohol and escorts instead of on his alleged ministry stuff.
So another Ted, what was his name? Ted. I can't remember his last name, but he was pastor of a church and involved in homosexual affairs and drugs and so forth.
And then Mario faked a rehab season of his life where he went to some rehabilitation programs and allegedly got, cleaned up, and he's just not doing all that stuff anymore, like the sexting and all the other stuff. And then he got exposed again by Gary828 because there was this girl that he was having this online affair with, for lack of a better word, during the time he was supposedly in rehab, getting right with God and getting away from doing all this stuff. And he basically was doing all the same things he was doing before. And he actually admitted to the girl that he was cheating his drug screenings at his rehab program. Basically, he went to a rehab program that had extremely lax rules, and it was easy to cheat the system and get your certificate so that he could brag about getting clean and going through a rehab program on his channel. But yeah, Mario quit YouTube right before Gary dropped that expose. So I think Mario knew what was coming, and he was just calling it good at that point. But yeah, he's someone who, like Kent, is a complete spiritual narcissist. Anytime you try to correct Mario on anything, he just won't have it. Like a lot of the same things you see Kent do, Mario does as well. And then there's another guy who runs a social media site called Gab, Andrew Torba.
Oh yeah.
To my knowledge, he's not a dirtbag like Mario and Kent Hovind is, in the sense of, enabling these horrible criminals and doing drugs and alcohol and all this stuff. As far as we know, he lives a relatively clean life, but he's also a spiritual narcissist in the sense that if you try to correct him on anything, whether it's Bible theology or the way he runs his site or lying about things regarding tech, anytime you try to correct him on stuff, he responds either in the same way, or he'll ignore you, or in my case, he'll block you. I actually have a ton of exposés on Andrew Torba because, unlike Kent Hovind and Mario,
I did see that.
He's a much bigger threat.
I saw that on your channel. I saw there was some stuff about Andrew Torba, and I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, because aside from the tech stuff that he does, Torba is trying to start this Christian nationalism movement, which he has a book on that he's about to put out, which I'm probably going to get and read so I can expose him more. But basically, he believes in a form of dominion theology, which is this idea that Christians are going to defeat the globalists and establish a global Christian monarchy that brings in 1,000 years of peace on earth, and then Jesus comes back to judge everything.
Yes.
I saw your face. It's stupid too if you read the Bible.
Yeah. It astounds me. I mean, it's often called postmillennialism as well.
Yeah, that's the other name for it.
Yeah. It astounds me that postmillennialism still exists after 2,000 years of history with Christianity, and the world just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. I mean, postmillennialism, I could understand the popularity of it back in the 1800s, the late 1800s. Things had been progressing and becoming better, at least in the West, since the 1600s or thereabouts, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. But then, 1900s, we start the 1900s full of optimism. yeah, everything's getting better and better. And then we have World War One. And then they call World War One the war to end all wars. And then we have the Great Depression and the rise of fascism and Nazism in Germany and World War Two. And post-millennialism is still popular. And you're like, how are you people thinking that all of a sudden you're going to be the Christians that turn this whole world around? That's arrogance. Yep. That's arrogance. You're not going to be the ones that suddenly change this world. After 2,000 years of Christian history, we haven't taken over the world. That's not what God called us to do. He called us to go out and preach the gospel to every creature. That's all we're here to do. We're not here to take over the government. If Christians get involved in government, great. William Wilberforce, awesome. But we're not going to take over the government. We're not going to make our countries Christian. That will never happen. There will only be a few that find the narrow way. And so it will be Christian fascism if you try and make your country Christian.
Yep. And that's exactly what a lot of people think will happen if Torba's ilk ever get power in this country.
It will have to. It will have to, because it cannot work any other way. And so then it will be whoever's the ones in charge, the ones that are with the most power, and that's always the ones that are more psychopathic, the ones that are more narcissistic, are the ones that take over the control. And so it will be their form of Christianity, which will keep becoming more and more corrupt. The more power you have, the more it corrupts you.
And I've also seen Torba and his people through his Gab News blog. They actually mock openly the idea of Jesus being a Jewish man and coming back on the clouds in the future, like the Bible says he's going to. Of course, I find it hilarious because,
anti-Semites as well.
Yeah, Jesus literally identified himself as a Jew to the woman at the well in John chapter 4, and yet for some reason Torba's ilk seemed to think that Jesus was not actually a Jew, and that anyone who suggested is a Zionist.
So he is actually a Nazi.
Well, I wouldn't call Torba a Nazi, but that's the crowd.
At least in that respect,
he caters to their crowd. Yes,
and he will. If his Christian nationalism succeeds, he will be a Nazi, because he will have the power, and it will naturally lead him in that direction.
Yeah, because like a few years ago, he used to promote the idea of decentralization and having social media sites being decentralized and having a decentralized internet. But in the last 2 years, he's basically been trying to create his Gab version of every service that Google and the Silicon Valley offers as far as social media sites, payment sites, etc. And he's basically centralizing everything under one Gab umbrella. Like, in order to use most of these services now, you have to have a Gab account, a Gab social account. And then in some cases, you actually have to pay Gab Pro membership money in order to be able to have full access to these services. And so that's part of the grift that he uses as well. But he's basically the opposite of who he claimed to be a couple of years ago. The fact that he's centralizing everything after he used to speak against centralization a couple of years ago kind of proves that he's a fraud and a charlatan in his own way as well.
Yeah, because he wants power. Power corrupts.
I think, who was the guy's name? I think there's a guy named Eugene Peterson. He's another tech guy that runs some websites, and he's a big open source guy. He said that people like Andrew Torba would trade places with Mark Zuckerberg in 2 seconds.
Yeah. So do you understand this question? Ask him about Corda.
Yes, I do. Let me prepare my screen share. Because Corda is an alt-tech open source alternative to YouTube that I started 2 months ago.
Oh, okay.
It's fully developed. It's like YouTube in terms of features, including some features that YouTube doesn't have, like a video chat room that you can live stream to your channel from, just like we're doing here with StreamYard, but it's built into the site. And we also have an insight currency that allows people to promote their channel and videos on the main page of the site without us being involved, as far as me moderating the site and putting people and stuff goes. Let me just share the screen here so people can see what Corda looks like. Let me just log back in as my TTOR account. All right. But yes, Quarter is based on the A Video project, which is an open source video site script that apparently is based off of the original YouTube script, but they added a lot of the modern features of newer YouTube. So you have full HD video uploads, you have the whole like, dislike button stuff, you have comment section with easy to use moderation for it. You have public playlists, which a lot of these alt tech video sharing sites they don't have. And you also have live streaming. And in addition to live streaming, you have free restreaming where you can restream to basically any streaming site on the internet. And there's other things we plan on having in the future, like having a video response section under videos like YouTube used to have, and other stuff that I don't want to reveal either.
Sorry, what's the website? Because when I do a search for Quarter, I get quarter.com.au, which is a...
Yeah, that's not it. Quarter.tv is the URL.
Quarter.tv. Okay.
Yep.
So...
Actually had an interesting... let me click on this guy's channel. One site that people keep flocking to called Odyssey was just recently exposed by this person who joined my site. And in this first video he uploaded a week ago onto Quarter, he actually shows a clip from an Ethan Ralph live stream where Ethan Ralph shows the text message he had with the CEO of Odyssey, where the CEO of Odyssey was literally trying to get him to worship Moloch.
Huh.
As a matter of fact, let me reshare the screen and enable audio, and I'll play that video for you on Quarter so you can see what playback looks like, and so you can see just how horrifyingly satanic some of the people in the alt tech world are.
I've been warned against Odyssey. I have tried all of the other platforms that I can find, but I'm not impressed with any of them. Especially since StreamYard works with YouTube, and I've only been censored twice on YouTube. But I hear that censoring does occur on these other ones anyway.
Yeah, I've talked about it a lot on my channel over the last year and a half. A lot of these alt tech sites that got popular, they have hate speech policies and they censor people, and they're doing a lot of the same shenanigans that YouTube and big tech does. So that's what inspired me to create my own YouTube alternative. And I also have a social media alternative called Creation Social, but I don't want to share that one until we've updated the site here in the near future.
Right.
Because there's some new features I'm going to add that'll make the site really good. And I don't think it's good to show off the site until then, at least for now. But anyway, let's see. Can you hear this video?
No.
Can you hear that?
No.
Hold on.
No, I didn't.
Huh. Hold on. Let me try screen sharing again because I clicked on the share audio button. Let's see. I'll try sharing my entire screen. See how that goes.
Yeah, sometimes it does play up.
How about now?
And he says, you got to talk to
There you go. That's working.
Okay, so let's put that at the beginning. Can you see the full screen?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So, anyways, asked me about her condition, and I'm telling her, and then he says, you got to talk to my
I just had to
guy,
up
Moloch.
HD.
I know it all sounds, I blurred out retarded because it's Twitter. I knew people would be trying
And they just want to move that little StreamYard window.
Yeah, and I was like, he kept bothering me about this, by the way. He kept bringing up Moloch all the time. And so I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I thought about it. I was like, it does sound wild, LOL. That's like a very uncomfortable LOL. Because he kept bringing up Moloch, like on the phone and shit. He would be talking about Moloch. And he was like, it brought him such great riches. Moloch? I don't know how to say it right.
It's Moloch, by the way.
Moloch? Moloch?
Yes.
The devil. I mean, I don't know what to say.
Well, or one of the demons, but yeah, it could be the devil.
We talked about how this like worked out for him. I'm not kidding, by the way. This sounds insane. I'm not kidding at all. I'm not kidding at all. This sounds like the craziest fucking thing. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
So, Kelvy, we're watching this because he exposes the creator of Odyssey as encouraging people to worship Moloch.
Well, it's not the creator of Odyssey; it's the CEO, because the person
CEO,
who's
CEO.
because the current CEO is not the same guy who founded the site.
Yeah.
Look this guy up. Like, you can look this guy's website up. I know it sounds fucking just insane. Yeah, this is Julian, the CEO.
Yeah. And for those of you watching potentially
Well-
right now or in the future, if you're not aware, Moloch is a Canaanite god that
Yep.
his adherents would often worship by child sacrifice, incestuous relationships with each other of all kinds,
Yep.
bestiality, and I'm sure homosexuality was involved, even though it
And-
wasn't listed in the certain passages in the Torah about it. But
He was an idol made out of metal, and he would have his arms outstretched, and they would have a hollow in his belly below the arms, and they would build a fire in there so the metal heated up, and then place children on those arms.
That's sick.
Babies. Basically, he was the god of child sacrifice. And it doesn't surprise me that the CEO, the head of Odyssey, is a worshipper of Moloch, because this is the world we live in, where baby sacrifice happens every single day and nobody cares. Well, I'm exaggerating slightly, but as a general rule, we're fine. We're fine. We just go about our lives, and baby sacrifice is occurring all around us. Now, they're not using a molten god, hot metal god to do it anymore, but it's still baby sacrifice. It's satanic. It's a satanic worship ritual, and the Satanists acknowledge this. In fact, they tried to defend abortion using religious freedom.
Yep.
Of course.
So, Justin, I wanted to ask you about your website, Quarter.
yeah,
Do you allow uncensored freedom of speech on your platform?
absolutely. As long as it's not illegal or, like sexual porn content, then yeah.
Okay. Well, no, I'm just asking because I'm a Christian. Like, there's certain topics that sometimes I like to try. I would talk about here on YouTube, but I know I would get.
Oh yeah,
censored.
it's an open door at Quarter. Talk about whatever you want.
Okay.
If anything, I'll promote you.
My second question is: do you give content creators an opportunity for monetization on your platform?
That is something that we'll be working on rolling out. I have a friend who runs a similar site with the same script, and he has a thing that allows you to basically create an ad. If you create an ad publisher account with any kind of online ad publisher, basically there's a way to embed the code of that publisher into your videos so that like banner ads will show up on your videos relating to that publisher and your channel and the people who watch your videos. So basically it will allow you to make money off your videos. But the difference between that and YouTube is that you would get to keep all your money. So like we wouldn't take out 20%, 30% or whatever. The creator would keep 100% of their ad revenue. Quarter wouldn't be playing a middleman.
I wouldn't even mind if you did. I just want to know if so you do have plans allowing content creators to get paid for their content.
When there's more people on there, yes, because right now we have 73 registered users, and there are some videos that get hundreds, even a couple thousand views, which is surprising and shows that our videos are showing up in search engines, but we don't have enough people using the site yet to justify rolling out that kind of payment system. But as soon as we do, that'll be like one of the first things we do.
Okay.
Especially if we get popular people to use the site and the site starts to blow up, then we'll just roll that thing out and people will be able to make money off of their content and not have to pay us any of it.
So I want to look more into this Kent Hovind thing, and I know there's people here in this specific community that I deal with that will probably chastise me for even talking with you.
Of course.
This Chris guy, whatever the problem is, like, I wouldn't say, this isn't proof that he's not saved, right? We all have the flesh, we all have struggles, but this is some level of negligence that Kent Hovind should at least take responsibility and said, yeah, I should have been more careful about what was going on my properties. And I admit, I made a mistake letting the boy sleep in the same house. I mean, at least some responsibility. I mean, it doesn't mean you agree with what happened, but it's just I don't like the lack of discernment that's going on. And for me, when I was young in the faith, I came to the faith in 2012. And I remember reading Genesis and being confused, like, well, how are people living over 800 years old? And, where do dinosaurs fit in this? And Kent Hovind was one of the first people that I came into where he explained young earth creationism and dinosaurs. And so I really appreciate him for that. I like binge watched his debates, his creation seminars. So all this is very troubling to me because I too, I like Kent Hovind.
And I have the same story too. I became I was an old Earth creationist most of my life. I became a young Earth creationist in 2014 when I saw the Bill Nye Ken Ham debate, which that debate didn't convert me to young Earth creationism, but it got me to actually investigate the issue to figure it out for myself instead of just listening to whatever old Earth creationists would tell me about young Earth creationism. And I did my research and I discovered that the Bible literally does teach a 6,000-year-old Earth and universe when you add all of the data and the time spans and the genealogies that have numbers on the people and their age. When you add that all together, you get a Earth and universe that's almost 6,200 years old. So I became a young Earth creationist after I discovered that, and after I saw the poor arguments regarding the Bible that old Earth creationists were making. I also discovered that they weren't even following their own rules when it came to biblical interpretation, because they say the same thing as young Earth creationists. You have to understand the context and the genre of writing and the style of writing and the grammar and all of that. Like the young Earth creationists and the old Earth creationists say the same thing about biblical interpretation, what the proper way to do it is. But when it comes to actually using those things the way they say, old Earth creationists will abandon all of those rules to justify their own interpretation of the Bible of billions of years.
They have death before Adam sinned.
Yep. And that's just a big no-no.
Because when I got saved, I listened to a preacher he believed in what they call the gap theory, where there was some sort of like pre-Adamite race on the earth and then God destroyed it and then recreated. It was just, I mean, even someone that was ignorant about, what the Bible said, it didn't even sound right to me. I'm like, what? Like,
plus in Genesis 2, right before God made Adam, it said that there was no one on earth to work the ground. So there couldn't possibly have been a pre-Adamite race prior to Adam.
Right. All right. So I'll create a channel on your platform.
Cool. I could definitely use more Christian channels on Quarter, because right now we primarily have tech people and gamers and whatnot. And, I provide some religious apologetics content, and I definitely would like to have more of that on the site.
And did you say it works with StreamYard?
Yes, I actually can stream to Quarter from StreamYard. You just have to add it as a custom RTMP or whatever.
Well, yeah, and I also just want to say something, guys out there that don't like, the Justin here, guys, if he believes the gospel, he's our brother. So you can have disagreements, that's fine. Don't cast me out of the community because I dared talk to this man. I don't know all his positions. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, and I don't know what's going on with this Kent thing. I'm looking into it for myself. So I'm not, please don't just cast me aside like, oh, I'm not a Christian because I refuse to defend Kent Hovind to the death. At the end of the day, Jesus is my Lord and Savior, not Kent Hovind.
Exactly.
And if Kent's in the wrong,
and that's what I tell. That's what I tell people too. My faith is not based on what Kent Hovind says or Ken Ham says or what Creation International says or what Ravi Zacharias says or what any man says. My faith is based on accepting the straightforward contextual reading of the Bible and having a personal saving relationship with Jesus as it tells us to have.
Yeah. That's right. Yep. Well, thanks for coming on and talking, Justin. And I'm going to look more into this Kent thing. And I will say that even if it is found that Kent knew about this stuff and it's wrong, that doesn't dismiss Kent as a Christian because we're saved by grace through faith. Not,
right. It does disqualify him from ministry, though, among other things.
No, I agree. Well, he honestly should have stepped down after he divorced his wife. But,
well, now he's got 3 women he needs to divorce. gosh.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
sounds so horrible when I say that out loud, but it's true.
Yeah. All right. So I will give your platform a shot. I'll create a channel. I just want to, see, where I can go to witness to the most people, unbelievers, atheists, Muslims, whatever.
I myself use a wide variety of video sharing sites, and
Yeah.
I think
I
you
have
should
an
be on.
Odyssey.
You should be
I've been
on as
thinking about
many as
Rock.
you can manage and are comfortable with. Would be my advice.
Yeah. Right.
Mm.
Right. All right. Well, thanks for talking to me, and I'll let you and Graham back at it.
Well, we need to let Justin go. So,
Yep.
yeah, thanks for joining us, Justin, and I'll let you go. I really appreciate you coming on, and we might organise another one to look at the third video that you've done. And I'm sure there's many more things that we can talk about. I'll look at Corder as well. I think you've got me as a sign up already. So I'll sign up to that shortly. And yeah, I'm sure there's many more things that we can talk about. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Yes.
And we'll catch you next time.
Yep. I had fun
Thanks.
too, and I look forward to seeing you again.
And I will just close with the gospel. Feel free to leave at any time. I have a gospel stream that I like to play at the end. This is the newest one that Kevin's uploaded. G'day everyone. I want to share with you the good news of the gospel. And it's not going to seem like good news when we start off, but the bad news is the truth. And so I need to tell you the bad news that you're probably not aware of or don't believe, so that you can hear the good news that rescues you from that truth. The truth is that this is God's world. He created this world, and God is holy, and He's a just judge, and He will judge every sin that has ever been committed, including yours. He's given us His standard, and one place where we can find that is the Ten Commandments. He says to have no other gods before Him. No other gods before Him at all. And we do that all the time. In fact, we change who God is to suit ourselves. He says don't make any graven image, and you probably think to yourself, well, I've never carved an idol out of wood or stone. But it's not just that, you can do it in your mind as well. Don't take the name of the Lord in vain. Don't use it in a way that is less than fully reverential for who God is. But not just with what you say, with what you do as well. Jesus said that if you hate, you're murdering in your heart. If you lust, have a sexual desire towards someone who is not your marriage partner, someone you're not married to, that's committing adultery in your heart. These are the words of Jesus. Have you ever stolen? Have you ever lied? If you've told one lie, that makes you a liar, and you say, no, I don't do that anymore, that's in the past. If you've murdered, you're a murderer. Doesn't matter how long ago it was. And that's how high God's standard is. He holds the same standard for all sin. So we're all sinners. That includes you. You have a sin problem. You are condemned by God because of your sin, because God's standard is perfect sinlessness. And we fall short of that. But Christ died for our sins. He paid it all. On the cross, just before He died, He cried out, "It is finished." This was a term. The Greek word is tetelestai or tetelestai. And it means, or it was used to mean, paid in full on a debt that someone had. or about their legal debt to society. When they had paid it, tetelestai was stamped on it, and Jesus has paid it for you. Have you accepted his gift? It's not automatically transferred to your account, it's offered to you as a gift. And so you must trust Jesus Christ to save you from your sin. Have you trusted him? Have you accepted that Jesus is the perfect payment for your sin? Trust him today. You're not promised tomorrow. You don't know when you will die. It could be today. Trust him now.